The day before my sister's wedding, my mother looked me straight in the eye and said, "It would be better if you don't show up. You'll spoil everything." I remember the exact way her mouth barely moved, like she'd been rehearsing the words for weeks. The air in the room turned solid. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just stood there, holding a glass of water I no longer wanted, while my mother's verdict hung between us like a locked door. Somewhere upstairs, my sister Victoria was having her final dress fitting, laughing with her bridesmaids. The whole house smelled of expensive lilies and fresh betrayal. I didn't say a single word. I set the glass down, picked up my bag, and walked out of my childhood home for good. In the driveway, I passed the wedding planner's van. I passed the tent where they were arranging champagne flutes for 200 guests. Nobody stopped me. Not one person. What my mother didn't know, what nobody in that house knew, was that I'd been living an entirely different life for 2 years. A secret life. A happy one. And that secret was about to become my greatest revenge. Growing up, Victoria was the sun, and I was just the dust orbiting far away. She got the praise, the ballet recitals with front row seats, the debutante ball coverage in the local paper. I got the "why can't you be more like your sister" speeches and a permanent seat at the kitchen table during family photos, because someone had to hold the camera. I learned early that my role was to be invisible, grateful, and never, ever in the way. When Victoria announced her engagement to Carter Langford, the son of a real estate mogul, my mother acted like royalty had arrived. She spent 6 months turning our home into a wedding command center. Every conversation was about floral arches, seating hierarchies, and which distant relatives might embarrass us. I wasn't consulted. I was given tasks. Pick up the napkins. Confirm the vegetarian option. Stand here and check the guest list for spelling errors. And then, exactly 24 hours before the ceremony, she decided I would ruin the entire event just by existing in the same room as the perfect couple. I never even knew what she meant by spoil everything. Was it my weight? My unexciting job as a graphic designer? The fact that I didn't have a boyfriend they approved of? Or maybe it was just the quiet way I'd started refusing to smile on command. Whatever the reason, she was done pretending I belonged. But here's what she didn't see. For 2 years, I had been in love. Not the kind of love that needs a spotlight, the kind that hides in plain sight, built in late-night phone calls and weekends away under fake names. His name is Daniel. We met at a coffee shop when he accidentally poured oat milk on my laptop, and by the time he'd offered to pay for repairs, I was already gone. Daniel is kind, steady, and comes from a world so far removed from my mother's shallow social climbing that I almost laughed the first time he told me what his mother did for a living. She's a forensic accountant. One of the best in the country. She uncovers financial fraud for a living, and she's terrifyingly good at it. His father is a retired judge. These were not people who cared about wedding hashtags or escort cards. They cared about truth. I hid Daniel from my family because I knew they'd ruin him. My mother would judge his quiet confidence as arrogance. Victoria would roll her eyes at his job. He runs a small nonprofit rebuilding libraries. And my father, as usual, would say nothing at all. So I kept him safe. I kept us safe. The night my mother told me not to come to the wedding, I called Daniel from my car. I wasn't sobbing. I was strangely calm. "She did it," I said. She finally erased me. Daniel was silent for a long moment. Then he said, "Then stop existing for them. Come exist with me." That night, we started planning something I never imagined. He got down on one knee in our tiny apartment kitchen, holding a ring that belonged to his grandmother. And I said yes. No announcement. No engagement party. Just us, choosing each other fully and finally. But what happened next changed everything. A few days later, Daniel's mother, Helen, called me. She's a woman who never wastes words. "I've been looking into your sister's new in-laws," she said. My heart stopped. "Routine background, nothing official," she continued, "but I think you should know, there are serious irregularities in the Langford family accounts. And I have reason to believe your mother and sister are directly involved." The walls tilted. My mother and Victoria, the women who'd made me feel worthless for not being polished enough, had been forging financial documents to secure Victoria's perfect marriage. They'd inflated assets, lied about inheritances, and fabricated entire portfolios. And now Helen had the paper trail. I didn't see this coming. I sat with that information for 3 days. I could have stayed silent. I didn't. I told Helen everything I knew, every suspicious comment, every overheard phone call, every time my mother bragged about massaging the numbers. I wasn't just a source. I was the key. And for the first time in my life, I felt no guilt. 2 months went by. I threw myself into planning our wedding. Daniel wanted something small, a garden, maybe 40 people. But Helen and her husband had connections. A few quiet invitations became a guest list that included philanthropists, journalists, and one globally beloved musician who had been a family friend for decades. When that musician offered to perform at our reception, I almost laughed out loud. The universe was rewriting my story, and I was just holding the pen. Our wedding day arrived. I walked down an aisle of wildflowers, wearing a simple vintage dress, with exactly 0 people from my biological family in attendance. Every single person there loved me. Every single person knew the truth. When the musicians started playing and the cameras started rolling, Daniel's cousin insisted on a professional video for family archives. I didn't realize the footage would end up online. I didn't realize it would ignite. I just felt alive. The video went viral within 48 hours. Not because of the celebrity cameo, though that helped. It went viral because people could feel the joy radiating from the screen. They saw a bride who had been thrown away, standing in a room full of love, and they shared it millions of times. It trended on every major platform. My face was everywhere. And then, 2 months after my mother's cruel command, she found it. She was scrolling through her tablet, probably in the same living room where she dismissed me like a stain on the furniture, when she clicked on a video with a familiar face. She saw me. She saw the flowers, the laughter, the breathtaking performance. She saw strangers, important strangers, famous strangers, holding up their phones, crying, celebrating. And she saw the guest list pinned in the video description, a list so powerful it made her entire world collapse. Her breathing stopped. Her vision blurred. She clutched her chest and slid off the chair onto the floor. My father found her there, unconscious. When she woke up, she demanded to see the video again. And then she noticed one name, just one, that turned everything upside down. The name that made her heart stop was Helen Voss. My mother sat on the floor, tablet still glowing, her finger trembling over the guest list pinned beneath my wedding video. She read it 3 times, maybe 4, while her brain tried to reject what her eyes were telling her. Helen Voss, forensic accountant. The same woman who had called her 6 weeks ago with a voice like chilled steel, asking about certain financial statements linked to the Lingered merger. My mother had dismissed it as routine paperwork. But seeing that name attached to my wedding, attached to me, reordered every piece of the puzzle in one brutal flash. Her scream brought my father running. Victoria was on the phone within minutes. And for the first time in decades, the chaos in that house had nothing to do with me, and everything to do with me. I didn't witness it in person. I was 3,000 miles away, sitting on a balcony in a cottage by the sea, Daniel's hand in mine, watching the sun drop into the water. My phone buzzed quietly. A text from Helen, they know. It's done. What happened next for them was a demolition sequence. But what happened for me was the strangest feeling I've ever known. Peace. Let me rewind a few weeks, because the revenge didn't start with the video. The video just lit the fuse everyone could see. The bomb had already been planted long before my mother fainted on that floor. Helen began her investigation the day after I gave her everything. I handed over emails, screenshots of my mother's texts bragging about adjusted net worth statements, even a voicemail from Victoria laughing about how Carter's father had no idea our family isn't worth half what we claimed. I became the silent funnel, the source no one would suspect, because they had erased me so completely they forgot I had eyes and ears. Helen's team worked fast. By the time my wedding video went live, she had already submitted a confidential report to the State Attorney General's office and flagged the Lingered family's financial disclosures for review. The viral video just accelerated the timeline. And the name on that guest list was the exact nightmare my mother never saw coming. I didn't see this coming either, at least, not the speed of it. Within 3 days, a financial crimes reporter picked up the scent. A short article appeared online: luxury wedding, hidden liabilities, questions swirl around prominent real estate merger. No names yet, but the shadow was cast. My mother and Victoria started calling me relentlessly. Blocked numbers, private messages, emails that swung between rage and desperate pleading. I read one and deleted the rest. The words blurred into a familiar pattern. How could you, after everything we gave you, you're ruining your sister's life. It was the same script, just with higher stakes. But the truth was worse than they imagined. Because I wasn't just sitting back. I was actively ensuring no door stayed closed. I gave a quiet interview to a journalist who had covered similar cases, off the record, background only. I didn't need my name in headlines. I just needed the right context to reach the right people. And when the story broke wide, it broke wide. A major investigative outlet ran a piece headlined, "The Wedding Fraud: How a Socialite Family Faked Fortunes to Secure an Alliance." The article detailed forged asset statements, doctored tax records, and a coordinated effort by my mother and sister to defraud the Langford family into an irreversible marriage agreement. What happened to Victoria's marriage next was something no one could have softened. Carter's parents immediately suspended all joint accounts and hired their own legal team. The wedding, the one I was banned from, was suddenly being dissected in boardrooms, not celebrated in photo albums. Within 10 days, Carter moved out of their shared penthouse. His statement to the press was devastating in its simplicity. "I was lied to from the beginning. This marriage was built on a crime." Victoria, the flawless golden child, couldn't walk into a restaurant without whispers tailing her. The bridesmaids who had laughed during her final fitting silently vanished from her tagged photos. And then the legal hammer dropped. My mother and sister were formally charged with conspiracy to commit financial fraud and multiple counts of falsifying documents. I will never forget the image that surfaced the next morning, a grainy photograph taken outside the county courthouse, my mother shielding her face with a designer scarf, Victoria stumbling behind her in oversized sunglasses, both of them looking exactly as small as they once made me feel. The arrest wasn't just a scandal, it was a public humiliation on a scale they couldn't control. But here's where it gets worse for them. The Langfords didn't just walk away. They filed a civil lawsuit seeking full recovery of every dollar invested based on fraudulent representations. My parents' house, the house I grew up in, the one I was told to leave for good, was listed as an asset subject to potential seizure. My mother's meticulously curated social standing crumbled to dust in under a month. Invitations dried up. Charity boards asked her to resign. My father, silent as always, finally spoke, not to defend her, but to announce a legal separation. He walked away, just like I once did. Only he left with half the remaining assets and no backward glance. And me? I watched it all from the life I had built in secret. The life they said would spoil everything. One evening, while the news cycle was still devouring the scandal, my mother found a way to reach me. A handwritten letter arrived at Daniel's parents' home, smudged and frantic. The words were a jumbled confession. She had been jealous of my independence, terrified that I would outshine Victoria on her wedding day, haunted by her own failures as a mother. She begged me to intervene, to speak to Helen, to find a way to fix this. She said she would do anything. Give me anything. She even promised to tell the world the truth about me, the good truth, finally. I read the letter twice. Then I placed it carefully into a fireproof envelope and added it to the file Helen would eventually present as further evidence of obstruction. The woman who once told me I would spoil everything had handed me the final piece of her own destruction. On the day their sentencing was announced, I was standing in a small garden, planting lavender with Daniel. My phone lit up with an alert. Mother, for years. Victoria, 2 years with probation. Financial restitution in the millions. The Langford merger was dead. The family name was a punchline. And the daughter they had erased was now the only one left with a story worth telling. I didn't celebrate. I didn't cry. I just breathed, the way you breathe when a locked door finally swings open and the air that rushes in is clean and completely yours. 2 months earlier, she told me not to show up. She said I'd spoil everything. She was right. I did spoil everything. Their reputation. Their freedom. Their carefully constructed lie. I spoiled it all, not by showing up at her wedding, but by showing the world who I had become without them. And when the courtroom door closed behind her for the last time, I knew one thing with absolute certainty. She didn't just lose me. She lost everything.